Welcome to Randy Johnson. Welcome to Randy Johnson's Castball. This is the Lost Art Podcast. Lost Art being our metal band from the southeast area of Massachusetts, the New Bedford area. Look for us. We're playing a lot of shows coming up. We're around Providence area, New Bedford, sometimes up in Boston. So follow us on Facebook, all of the social media to see where you can get involved in the shows that we're playing and apply the knowledge that you're gaining about this very, very niche group of four people. I have two of those four people, as well as myself, with me today. We've got Brian and Chris, guitarists for Lost Art. Say hello to the people.
What's up?
Woo! So we're going a little off script in that we have basically no plan for this podcast other than I thought it'd be a good opportunity to not necessarily discuss a song so much, but some of our influences, how we got to be the players that we are today.
I'm thrilled that you're hosting this.
I think I've really fallen into the role.
There's
really.
a couple of roles that you have or will fall into in the future. The other being you're the one with the gear. So whenever we get a Kemper and a nice Mac to mix on the shit, guess where it's going?
Oh, guess who the producer?
Guess who's learning
Absolutely.
the software and.
That's okay.
It's just a stepping stone.
I haven't had really that many jobs. I do feel bad sometimes about the amount of stuff that you guys do. Not you so much, Brian, but Chris and Casey, you guys handle the merch, putting together CDs. We've got this great new pressing of Lost Art from the Ether. Look for that coming out. Our 5-song EP.
I'm pretty stoked. Shout out to Atomic Disc. They're a company out of Oregon, and they're also the ones that did our pressing from Sand to Sea, which is really cool. They're super, super quick with the turnaround. You send your art, you send the font, and they email you back. I got emails back within a day of proofs, and they don't go into production until you're 100% happy with it. So it's really, really cool. So
well, this is what I'm talking about. You do so much of the legwork for putting CDs together. And this is not an easy thing. You had to manage sending out the artwork, putting together. You put together this whole thing I'm looking at here with the picture on the back and the names of the tracks and Lost Art and the credits and everything. It looks so professional. And
thank you.
And that's. I think the listeners are going to think so as well.
Shout out to my girlfriend Katie, though. She's the one that did it the first time around and helped me.
She does a lot of heavy lifting.
I sent you guys that Young Thug meme where they're sitting in the back and he's just watching the other dude on the computer. That might be Young Thug. I'm not sure which one's which, to be honest with you. It was a funny meme. I looked up meme where the guy's in the background looking and it said Young Thug and one other dude, and I'm sure they're doing much better than us. So shout out to them.
That's true.
Shout out to Young Thug.
So that's great. Casey really takes the lead. I do maybe 20% of our show booking, and whenever we have a show that's like a Lost Art show featuring friends, that's
sure, yeah.
Casey is the front man on that shit.
What's cool that you guys do, and I think out of the four of us, me probably the least, which sucks because I would like to do more, is you guys go to shows. And I mean, especially it was much easier, unfortunately, when the Vault, shout out to the Vault.
R.I.P. Yeah,
R.I.P. Vault. But you guys would go there all the time, and you guys went to the Plymouth show. You saw Professor Caffeine. We would, we'd go. Casey goes to see Driveways all the time, Traverse, all those guys.
Yeah.
So it's cool, and I've kind of said it before too, is that it's when I take a big step back and kind of look at a lot of the bands that we've been on bills with, and then when I follow those bands and see those bills on their Facebooks and stuff, and I see other bands that we've played with on their bills, I get that sense of being in a scene and kind of being in a community of bands, and that makes me happy. I think that's really cool.
Tended to feel like we're on the outskirts of whatever scene we're part of here. I think it's getting better. We have different connections and friends in certain places. Traverse, Frantic Endeavor.
Yeah. And I mean, because it's cool because in a way, all of those bands stand out, but they mesh very well. So we're starting to mesh. But we are, I think we've always kind of dealt with feeling a little out of place. We're not.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard to know where we stand.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, we've been doing this for so long, and we've worked with a few different promoters now. So, I think it's easier to just make our friends in these different bands
Yeah.
and kind of do our own networking.
Mm-hmm.
And the guys that really want to play with us,
Mm-hmm.
we'll talk to their promoters and kind of get us through that way. I mean, certainly
Yeah.
Casey does a lot of that legwork as well.
Right. And again, it comes from he goes to so many shows.
Right.
And
Um,
there's so many people in these bands too who are like busting their ass in a way that we're just frankly not.
Yeah,
Who
yeah.
it really is their main thing is to play music.
Yeah.
And whatever job they have is a means to that end.
Right.
We're a little bit different in that regard. Not saying one's better than the other. But that's probably a big part of the reason that
Absolutely.
it shows in the quality of their playing.
honestly, wish we were more like those guys. But.
Well, I mean, I would say, now that we have made the connections that we have, and another perfect example is the new EP and the guys in Traverse that are helping us record that stuff. Now that we have those connections, we can certainly produce much more frequently than we ever thought possible. You go back to 2018, 2019 when we did the first project. That involved, driving out to Worcester and working with Ian and
Yeah.
doing all that stuff.
We did that in 2 days.
We did that in 2 days, but that was it was
marathon
very
days.
it was very uncharted territory for us.
Yeah.
And now that we at least have that prior experience and now this experience, it should be. I think we're getting a footing with this now.
With the amount of writing that I feel like we can do in a pretty short time, there's really no excuse for there to be 4 years between our last release of 2 songs and our current release of 5
I
songs.
will say a big part of it is Brian and I being in school, but there's
That's
not
true.
much
I
you can
forgot
do
about that. Yeah.
That is true.
Oh, you just forgot about 2.5
mean-
years of your life.
Yeah, I mean, 4 years ago, I don't know. It feels like you guys have been out maybe longer than that, so I do forget sometimes. But
Well, out in terms of being out of school, but
Well,
still in
yeah.
between working and doing clinical. That's still I
Technically-
still count that as school. Though.
Technically, this is our third fall at home,
Right.
Because we were both like in the area for clinicals,
right,
so
right.
And we pretty much hit the ground running.
Yeah.
And we wrote this record that winter, pretty much.
Yeah, actually,
Yeah.
that was funny because that's what Josh and I were talking about when we did the pod about Agents.
yeah.
Is that he and I were writing it in December, January of 2020 into 2021.
Yep.
And that came together pretty quickly, but we did a lot over Zoom and FaceTime
That's
and all
right.
that stuff.
I remember. I think the first time you guys showed me that song
Yeah.
was over Zoom.
Yeah.
it was interesting, but I don't miss that.
No, I know.
Much easier to show things
All right.
off in person.
You
here.
you had some questions for us.
Yeah,
as-
no,
as
I
your
don't
host
mind
doing
the
the host duties.
detour there. I think that was good stuff. We're here for a peek behind the
A lot
curtain.
of shout outs. Please like us.
Yeah, seriously.
Please be my friend.
But yeah, I wanted to just take a minute to talk about how we got where we are in terms of our writing and our playing from the perspective of who are our biggest influences. And there's a lot of history here. I mean, we've been playing together since before high school even. And so some of those most formative years in terms of deciding what your music taste is going to be and what you value are right in that zone. So I think we have a unique opportunity, maybe over people who have gotten together and started playing together later in life, to talk about how we shared influences, maybe how we diverged at certain times. So, and Casey, of course, isn't here, unfortunately, but would have his own things to say about this. And I think might be, I don't know, if we were to plot ourselves on some sort of graph, I think we might find him the furthest away from the three of us. Would anybody agree? Would you agree with that?
In terms of,
I don't know, if there were 3 people who were going to form, who were the closest on this graph. I'm
yeah,
imagining.
that's probably true.
Yeah.
You're talking in terms of influences?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah,
See, it's tough to say.
It is tough to say.
Casey likes such a wide variety of music.
yeah, he has
He like
the
I mean,
widest of any of us.
the
There-
widest
there's
and
nothing-
deepest.
yeah.
Like it's
widest and
insane.
deepest. Yeah.
There's really
he
nothing.
genuinely loves music,
Which
not
is
like
awesome.
us.
Not like us.
I'm just
Hate
like
the stuff.
Hey, check this out. He goes, "Oh yeah, they're awesome." I'm like, "What the fuck, dude?" I'm like, "I just found this band."
That's right.
Like,
Yeah,
It's wide and deep, but at the same time, he likes what he likes.
yeah.
And like he can appreciate whatever we bring to the
absolutely,
table, but like
absolutely.
it might not be his shit.
no, yeah, he's not going to pick up everything that we
Right.
put down necessarily. And I shouldn't talk about us like this monolith. I mean, we're about to get into all of the differences between us, I'm sure.
Right.
And I'd say probably as long as we're drawing lines here, I think I might be an outlier among the 3 of us. I don't know. We all have our own niches. Let's get into it.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, okay.
So I want to say that really our starting point when we were getting into playing guitar. I mean, I was originally a guitarist in this band, believe it or not, back in 7th grade when it started. But so we had some of the same influences then. We were really big fans. I'm just going to go ahead and say of the big four of thrash metal.
Yeah, I'd say so.
I think that's a pretty good starting point.
Maybe not Anthrax, but
Hey, man, I always liked Anthrax. Certainly more than Slayer, and that's probably going to get some
I'm
hate.
I'd probably
more of a Slayer guy.
more Slayer than
I'd go
Anthrax.
Yeah. Well, I think I was so interested in being unique in this regard because I know a lot of my friends like Metallica, and I was like, all right, well, what's on the other end of that spectrum? And I was like, oh, all right, turns out there's some history here, a rivalry that I can get in on and set myself apart from everybody else, which I'm always trying to do which is a fault.
Contrarian.
Yeah,
To prove you're an
it's not
individual.
good. Yeah.
Just recreationally contrarian.
I absolutely am recreationally
fun.
contrarian, and whatever that is,
a good band name.
14 years later, I'm still a pretty decent Megadeth fan.
Oh yeah.
So, and you guys, I mean, to be fair, we're also big into Megadeth as well.
Oh, for sure. Like started out as Metallica, but then Megadeth. Something about Megadeth, man. I just got hooked. Like in terms of how much. I almost want to say how much longer they were a thrash metal band. Like Metallica definitely branched out a little bit, and that's not to say it's a bad thing by any means. But you know, you have like the Black Album. That was a big divergent from Ride the Lightning and Master of Puppets and stuff. Megadeth has just been kind of like thrash.
Megadeth definitely had their moment.
Well, yeah, but you have what the fuck was it? Risk.
Yeah,
which was kind of like
99.
That was a little out there and stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're going to say that the Black Album's a divergence, then I mean, Cryptic Writings for sure. Is kind of their Black Album. It got a little bit more commercial, but to great success as well.
Right.
Metallica did it better.
Yeah, I think I remember these arguments.
I was always the Metallica guy. I can't lie. And you know, I kind of had I revisited them this summer.
Mm-hmm.
And really refound my appreciation for them.
Oh yeah,
because God, those first 4 albums especially, and the Black Album and some of the stuff afterwards. It's like
big fan of Death Magnetic.
Yeah,
I think the reason for that is because we were actually alive for like a good Metallica album to come out. Not that the other ones weren't good, but I just mean like we were in high school. Probably 8th grade.
No, it was 8th grade, yeah.
It was 8th grade. Yeah. So going into, junior high school, and that album came out, and it kicked ass. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of good songs on that album.
I think that's true of both bands, as long as we're doing a comparison here, where we had this great appreciation for the early stuff. They're like their big moments in the 80s and 90s. And then we also really latched onto the stuff that was coming out around the same time. I loved United Abominations. You guys were big Endgame fans.
Endgame was good, yeah. We went to see that tour.
We did.
Right.
Yep.
That's right. That was a fun show.
Night. Sorry, I cut you off.
That was a fun show because remember they played with fucking Motorhead.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We saw Lemmy before.
Fucking Motorhead when we were kind of almost like too young to appreciate it.
Definitely
in a way.
were.
Yeah.
You know.
But I can look back and say, I saw him before he went. So
exactly.
Loud.
Yeah. And they were loud.
Yeah.
Those
so
rumors
awesome.
are true for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I definitely kind of refound that appreciation for Metallica, and it was kind of cool going back to the roots this summer because we're on our way to releasing From the Ether, but we're already well into the writing for the full length, which we hope to have out sometime in the next year.
That'd be great.
And so it was kind of cool, going back to where we started and listening to some of those older records that were at the start of our gig.
It's really funny. I think we've talked about this in the past. It's different. My experience was different from you guys, particularly you, Josh, because you were a big collector of CDs.
I wish I still was.
And I'm not. And Brian, I don't know how you really got a lot of your music back. I know you use LimeWire and stuff, but that was my point. Is that back in the day, I used LimeWire for every bit of music I ever wanted to listen to. And the pro is that you can get a shit ton of music. The con is that there is no organization to it whatsoever. No. So
Artists aren't even right half the time.
Well, that's
Smoke on the Water by Led Zeppelin.
yeah, that was a class.
But so for that kind of like threw me for a loop because I had 25 different Metallica songs that I was crazy about.
And you had no idea.
I had no idea what albums they were from. I didn't. So then it come to find out, like when I look at the track list, I'm like, I haven't listened to a full Metallica album ever. Like
it's funny. I had this same exact like scenario where I downloaded Metallica's. I think it was My Apocalypse, and it was fucking awesome. It was like 4 minutes off of LimeWire, and it kicked ass. And then when Death Magnetic like dropped, I went like right to My Apocalypse, and it was a totally different song. So I don't know.
You don't know what song you were listening to?
I don't know what song. I didn't even.
That's fucking hilarious.
I don't even know if it was Metallica. I don't know if it was like some sort of weird deep track B-side that they really.
Oh my god!
And it was better than the actual song.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
Do you even like remember how it sounded? Could you find it by like humming it into Google?
Okay,
man, I wish. I'm gonna
go off on a short
It's a banger.
tangent
It's a
because you
banger.
just like unlocked something for me.
Go off, King.
A Whole Lot of Love, right?
Yep.
There's that long interlude where he's just playing the drums like ting 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 ting,
Yep.
and
If you say so.
and it's building. It's fucking song.
Fuck you.
On the Run, off of Dark Side of the Moon.
Yeah.
It was overlaid over that part where the synthesizers are going like.
So you just thought A Whole Lot of Love had this random piece of Dark Side of the Moon in
Yeah,
it?
well, I didn't know it was Dark Side of the Moon at the time.
Right.
I thought it was just a synthesizer part.
Who the fuck's putting this shit on LimeWire?
Wow.
And then I played it.
Led Zeppelin's
And then
awesome.
I played it in the car with my dad. He goes, "Yeah, that's Pink Floyd over that." He's like, "That's not how that sounds." I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, that's not right at all."
That's funny.
And I was
Wow.
like, "Holy
You
shit!"
don't have that, do you? Still?
No,
Like,
maybe
I'd love to
in
hear
like
that. I'd
the
love to hear
annals
that.
of my hard drive on my computer.
I still have your fucking iPod, Brian.
I know.
You might be able to find some shit on there.
You might be right. Let's go check.
But okay, so that's obviously a very reasonable starting point for this conversation, and I think a logical place to go here was we got very excited about the idea of big fours. Do you remember this, Brian?
Yeah, we did. Yeah,
And I think we tried to do like
So
an
you know that-
analogy.
yeah,
And I think I could remember this pretty specifically. We were like, who would be the modern big four of thrash metal? And this struck me as a very good question.
well, you say modern, but we had
This
these
is
conversations back in high
2009,
school. So yeah,
2010,
new 2010.
Yeah.
And
Do you remember who the big four were?
let's see. I know Avenged Sevenfold was in there.
Yep.
Trivium, Bullet for My Valentine.
Correct.
And
Who were good at the time?
yep.
Ooh,
I
guess
Yeah.
I don't know. The
Take a
full-
guess.
Kill Switch.
No.
I was thinking them. Hold on. Give me a second here.
It's funny because it's not really thrash though.
No, I mean, again, it's
Just the big four of
It
metal.
was essentially
It's
metalcore,
evolved.
which is
Metalcore.
what we
Yeah.
progressed to.
Right, exactly,
You know?
yeah.
And there's elements of both of those
oh,
things in
Lamb
our
of God?
writing. So
Lamb of God.
no, I thought I could have sworn it was Disturbed.
Oh, you might be right.
Oh, interesting.
Which you said begrudgingly at the time because you by then were not a huge fan of them. But
No, but you brought me around to him.
yeah, but I think you were just acknowledging how big they were at the time, and they were certainly big
Maybe.
for me. If I'm going to go off on this tangent for
Yeah.
a second, I think I've told you I've only had 5 favorite bands in my life, and Disturbed was the third one.
Nice,
So
yeah.
I had a long stint.
Tell me the
loving
5.
them. The Backstreet Boys
Was your
was
first
my
one?
first favorite band. I mean, I was when I
Dang.
was like 6.
Hell
6,
yeah!
yeah.
No, that's a good.
We all had that
that's a
album.
good fucking
And
choice.
And actually, the progression is very telling.
That's
followed by Linkin Park.
Okay,
So
okay.
getting into some heavier stuff with,
Yep.
but poppier and easier to listen
Still,
to
yeah.
elements.
Sure, yeah.
And then Disturbed was third with
And Megadeth.
and then Megadeth and
then Haken.
these days Haken. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
So I think it is an interesting progression because
That is
awesome.
interesting.
Megadeth being thrashy, and then these days, and you could tell how it's been evolved in my writing. Stuff that was around 2009, 2010 is I think much more clearly rooted in thrash and maybe metalcore to a certain extent, and then these days,
Right.
a lot more prog elements.
Well, and I want to go back to that metalcore era for us.
Yeah.
Because for a while, I stuck to, Metallica, Megadeth, and even some of the 80s bands that, were going back to, when I was in like 5th or 6th grade when my mom showed me like AC/DC, Van Halen, a lot of these 80s like stadium bands and hair bands. and it took me a while, probably a lot longer than most of our friends at the time, to get into like, vocals with screaming and everything. And it was Bullet for My Valentine that really turned things around for me. Specifically, Hearts Burst Into Fire.
Oh yeah.
A lot of that song doesn't have a ton of screaming, but
It's like right at the end,
where where they place it, I thought like had a real impact and a lot of emotion. And then from there, I was able to appreciate bands like Trivium, Lamb of God, you had mentioned, and really get into some of that heavier stuff. So that was a big pivotal moment for me where once we started getting into that, I was like, shit, we got to find a way to get this into our music. And because at the time we were still writing songs like Signs and Iron Horse and stuff, which would essentially fit right into the Kill 'Em All era of
for sure.
thrash,
Yep.
And it's part of the reason I'm excited that we've kind of waited to put those on a later release. I think they're going to provide a lot of breadth to the full length when we finally put it out, because we're going to have some really fresh new elements, at least for us, of like proggier stuff going on, and then also some of these things from our roots that were written, like I said, 2009, 2010.
It'd be a cool balance.
I think it'll be fun, for people to listen to. So, let's get into the mastodon of it all. When did this happen? Chris, I'm going to let you lead this part of the discussion as their current biggest fan.
Okay. It had to be around freshman year because because I remember. Again, I think I don't remember how okay. I don't remember exactly how I found them, but what I do remember is some of the early elements of, you remember like old on-demand,
like
the
music
original
videos and shit,
Havoc and Fuse and and these like channels. So I remember watching the music video for March of the Fire Ants.
Oh shit! Okay.
And it was weird, man. It's like this. It's like this sepia tone. It's a dude like strapped to a chair with like a bag over his head, and like it was crazy. And then probably through LimeWire, I heard Blood and Thunder, I Am Ahab, Megalodon, like a lot of more of the songs off of Leviathan, and it was Brian Fox, who was
going to bring him up,
our drummer a long time ago. His older brother Bruce loved Mastodon, so when I brought it up to Brian, he's like, "Oh, my brother loves
Brian
them.
too, right?
Brian too, but Bruce loved them, and Bruce was on the track team,
right?
And so we kind of had some common ground about that.
I used to borrow his iPod during study hall, and I like a crazy amount of influence just from that.
Yeah,
Brian Fox.
Listening to. I don't know. Obviously, Mastodon. I think Firewind. He got me into.
Oh, cool.
And then
Jesus, that's
who am I thinking of? Ronnie something. What's the? I'm not the guy for this.
Dio?
No, not. I'm familiar with Dio.
Ronnie Radke.
Falling
in Reverse.
Thank you. Yes, but his first band.
Escape the Fate.
Thank you. Escape the Fate.
Oh yeah,
I don't know why I
yeah.
can come up with that, but yeah.
So, what was interesting, actually, it's funny, kind of like what we said about Death Magnetic, is when we were in, I want to say, was it junior year of high school? Was The Hunter came out?
That could be about right, yeah.
And I
2012?
remember 2012, so yeah, going into senior year.
About right.
I remember actually being at Jess's house.
Okay.
It was you, me,
there.
Jess, and Alex Mildy, I think. Which is very strange. Throwback to a lot of people in high school. Shout out if they're listening.
They better, because nobody else is going to give a fuck.
She had the fucking record, and she had a record player, and we were listening to
The
it.
Hunter?
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty rad.
Yeah, I'm almost positive, because we were gonna go a long time ago. This is years.
Go see
anyway,
Mastodon.
Yes.
Yeah.
But so anyway, so that was actually the first full Mastodon album I think I listened to was The Hunter. Again, because it was new, because it came out when I was into them, and it wasn't me just kind of backtracking into their other stuff. Yeah. So like Octopus Has No Friends, Blasteroid, all of the like the Black Tongue, Curl of the Burl.
Big Stargasm fan.
Yeah. That's a good song. Yeah. So, and then like anything else,
I like Bedazzled Fingernails.
that's a good one. That's a deep track.
It's
a deep track.
it's different, but I really like that one.
And then it just kind of cascaded. I think I finally was able to get all of Leviathan, listen to all of Leviathan, listen to all of The Hunter.
And then you would not stop talking about Remission for
That's a lot more recent.
however many years.
No, that's a lot more recent.
All right.
See, I don't think you're right about that. I think my little entry into Mastodon was I went kicking and screaming. Let's put it that way. Because I think at the time, you and Casey were big into Remission. Even some of the like heavier tracks.
It's funny
off
that
of
you say that
Leviathan.
because I don't even know about that.
I think you were.
I feel like I didn't
think you were.
really get into Remission until later. I obviously loved March of the Fire Ants.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
there was a lot of scream elements I couldn't necessarily
maybe,
get
maybe
past.
a lot of it was Casey, and then
Casey likes Remission.
Is it
a lot.
Aqualung off of Leviathan?
Aqua Dementia.
Aqua Dementia.
Aqua
Yes.
Dementia. That screaming throws you for a loop.
Oh yeah,
because Brent's
but it's annoying because I love the
that
intro
opening riff is fiery.
and
dude,
yes,
yeah.
and then they just lose me. But so I was like, I was like, fuck this band. They don't give a shit about vocals. They
No,
don't.
you know what is too is fucking Blade Catcher.
Oh, God.
it might have been
to this
that.
day,
Blade Catcher.
won't listen to Blade
It
Catcher.
And it's so funny because like now I'm like, oh, I can listen to that because it does, I just tune it out because it's the music in it is so fucking cool.
but-
And then obviously the fucking Aqua Teen movie.
Yes,
Oh, that was
that
big.
was
Oh, that was
Let's
good.
get
Oh.
to that. Hang on.
but let me finish
That might have been
it.
how
Let me
I
finish it.
discovered them. But anyway,
So anyway, I had all these interactions where I was just like, they're really not for me. Until, again, going back to Josh's CD collection, he's like, I'm gonna force you to listen to this, and he sat me down.
Oh, yeah.
And we went through the last Baron.
yeah.
13 minutes.
and a half minutes.
Yes. And right about the 8.5 minute mark, he's like, you're going to want to listen to this fucking riff. And it still to this day gives me chills. One of the juiciest, grooviest riffs I've ever heard in my life.
So
And
when did you get that album?
Well,
then?
so this is what I was going to say. I did get into Mastodon independently, believe it or not. I checked them out. I was like, what did they release recently? I've heard this name a lot. It was, Crack the Sky, sorry, is the name of the album. And I checked out the music video for Divinations.
Oh,
And
cool.
I loved that song. I think it was in my like top 5 songs, full stop, for a very long time. Really? And
Ooh, sorry to cut you off. Yeah, B's 152.
All right.
oh, great. Old Bruin scores for everybody. But I just I loved that song, and I love describing the music video because basically what happens is the members of the band are hiking a mountain and full alpine clothing and everything.
I don't think I've seen
They
this video.
find like some sort of frozen Yeti man, and he comes out and plays the song with them. And then he kills him, I think. And that's the music video.
Dude.
That's cool.
But
God, we have to start filming this shit. And we need a big TV where we can pull stuff up. You're the guy that pulls stuff up.
Oh, God.
Pull that up, Josh.
Another job that I can have to get rid of my guilt about not doing enough in this
Nice.
place. I'm the guy who pulls stuff up.
I'll have to check that out.
It's a very fun music video, and I loved that song. Like I said, found that independently, showed you the album.
Yeah.
It's still in my top 5 albums. And it has something for all of us, I think, by the time you got into them. It has definitely proggier elements for me, sludgier, doomier shit for you, Chris.
It took me longer to get into that. I don't know. I'm not sure why. I think it was just because I hadn't like I get into this pattern of you listen to the early stuff and you're like, oh, this is what this band sounds like. And you're like, oh, I wasn't ready for them to change so drastically.
Oh, this brings up an interesting point.
Because
I think Josh and I have a different approach to getting into bands than you do.
probably.
Elaborate.
So
I'll bite.
we generally choose like middle of the pack, right? Like we'll
When
do
you get
if
into-
a band's been
yes.
around for a while, maybe
I
they
see
got
where you're
like
going with this. Yeah.
I don't wanna hit
7,
their
8
best
albums
stuff first.
You're not going to do the early stuff. You're not going to do the most recent. I feel like bands really hit
that's
their
an interesting
stride.
strategy.
Really hit their stride at like 4
Then
or
yes,
5.
we
maybe,
are
you know?
super different.
Yeah.
Every band I get into, I go to first album first.
No way.
Like, so to give you a good
Sounds like
example,
a good way
because
to
that's
bail out of some bands that get good later.
oh no, well not necessarily because I'm willing
Right,
to
right,
I'm
you
willing to
might-
stick it out with a lot that bands. So like
I ain't got that kind of time.
really
They
actually
got to impress me early.
oh no way, man. Well, impress me early. A good band that impressed me early with their first album, where I knew a lot of their songs. System of a Down.
Oh yeah.
That first album,
and yet the
is
last 3 are my favorite.
No, that's fine, and I love Toxicity, and that's a great album, and like Steal This album.
This album's second, but yeah.
That's a good one too.
That's
but
the one that really stuck with me.
See, I know that's a hot take that the first two albums are not my favorite. But whatever.
War, Mind, and then the couple of like early tracks. War and Mind, I think they're back to back on the album.
Maybe.
Actually, those are two of like the heaviest fucking songs. Crack.
I should probably introduce this gag before we start doing it all the time. Anytime somebody opens a drink, we're going to pick a note randomly, and occasionally we'll probably get a good chord, but most of the time it's going to be
It was supposed to be a beer, which is why I said crack.
I just opened a bottle of wine, which is smelling more like a bottle of vinegar. So that's why we did.
You're going to want to drink that.
Hook me up.
But we'll try it. We'll try it. I'm not going to be happy about this. Just
but
so you know.
but anyway, some of that shit is so heavy, and I was like,
Did you want any of this,
dope.
Josh?
Not at the moment.
Okay.
I was like, this is fucking dope. They're, and obviously I liked, what I was familiar with is a lot of their more popular songs, which are off of like Toxicity or what's the, like BYOB. That's
Mesmerize and then
yes, thank you.
Hypnotize, yeah.
So something like that. But yeah, so that's interesting. It's I think I don't know. It's not exactly. I think my philosophy on it was like, okay, this is this band's first attempt. This is like, let's see what they got. Like, let's see what they put together, and it's a way of kind
following
of
their evolution.
Yeah, I guess so. I think it resonates with me a little bit because, I guess in terms of, even though we've been playing together for a long time as a band, we're only so legitimate like in the past few years, where we're releasing music and playing really good shows and stuff. No, but you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So, Baroness is another good example. Like but actually that one I found.
This is where we're at to start diverging.
That one I think I found just one of those lucky times where like Spotify just says, "Hey, if you listen to this, you might like that shit," and I'm like, "Whoa, that's cool."
How many bands can you name where their first album's your favorite?
Ooh, that's a good question.
I don't know if I have any. If I'm being quite
think
honest.
you might
Like the
be
bands.
Okay, so Baroness for me is one.
Well,
Oh yeah, Red Album kicks ass, dude. It's fucking phenomenal.
I don't know the one did I listen to Gold and Green?
No, Yellow and Green.
Yellow and Green?
That one's good.
That's a good one.
I mean,
That's probably much the only one I listen
some of my favorite bands I'm just going to name right now, and it's true of none of them.
I
Megadeth,
know.
Trivium.
No, sure.
Haken's not true.
But I think
Trivium's close. Ascendancy's a great.
all right.
Oh yeah, that kicks ass.
It might be second.
Ascendancy's their first one?
Ascendancy's the first.
No, isn't it Ember to the Inferno?
Well, that
I
was
thought.
when
which I used to think it was Ascendancy
they
as well.
weren't
That's the only reason I know
signed at that point or something.
Okay.
I don't give a
or
fuck.
was
It's
it
neither of
different
those.
Anyway.
That's the problem.
But
It is not.
But okay, so and it's not that I necessarily think of band's first album as my favorite, but I think if it's a band that I want to get into for whatever reason, so like if it's a band that I've heard a lot about or a band that I kind of know about and know their music but don't really know, like, I guess what a true fan would consider like their best or their, whatever you want to say, their essentials, I guess.
Yeah.
I go to like Pink Floyd, like that first album. It's whatever. It's really cool because it's got a lot of that kind of like. It's fine.
I can't drink this. I can't drink.
It's got a lot of like that old, 60s psychedelic.
Right.
And it's cool, and I just think it's fun to appreciate. It's the only album that Syd Barrett was on start to finish before he, developed dementia and all that shit.
You guys do not want to open the Pink Floyd gates.
No,
just yet.
not
I'm just
the
saying.
Floyd gates. But that's a good, that's a good example. Not that it's their best album, but like Led Zeppelin's first album.
Is
It's got a lot of good songs on it.
but that's a legitimate that's a legitimate contender. Certainly not mine. But
Right.
But I don't. I don't think people are crazy for saying.
And then
Led
it's
Zeppelin
funny
1's
because
the best.
it's funny because I there was a big phase for me where I got into a lot of punk bands, like old like 80s hardcore punk bands that maybe only released one album.
Right.
Like Minor Threat. Minor Threat had a couple of 7-inches and a couple of compilations. They only had one full release. So that's kind of that skews it a little bit.
Right.
Well, so I before we move past the mastodon of it all too much, I wanted to use that as a segue here because I think Mastodon's an interesting example because we see a lot of ourselves in them.
Yeah.
I think you guys would agree with that.
Absolutely.
They really divide vocal duties probably more than any other major band that we listen to, which is great. Braun is absolutely a drumming idol of mine. I think you guys probably, even if you don't pay too close attention to their playing, I think you see yourselves in the roles that Bill and Tattoo Face, what's his name?
No, you're right.
that they
Brent.
Brent, thank you.
It's funny because I think you attribute Bill to Brian a little bit, mostly because Brian doesn't do a lot of vocal stuff. He just plays.
But I know he's also really instrumental in their writing.
Right. I identify with Bill a little bit more in the sense that he's the rhythm guitar. Like he does a lot of writing, but Brent's kind of the fiery, does a lot of cool solos and stuff.
No analogy is going to be perfect.
I don't really,
that's true, but
I don't really identify with any individual in the band that much, but I do. I like you had said, certainly the dynamics, right? We do split the vocal duties a lot. Kind of playing around with the bass player being the front man. We do that a lot as well.
Stand in the same way on stage.
But more than anything, I hope to and strive to emulate their songwriting. I feel like as a band they're very concise with their ideas, and they're really good at executing. And I think that's something that we have done, better and better over the years. And it's something that I hope we continue to get better at too as well.
I think I really appreciate when a band has made me personally go, oh, I didn't realize music could be that. So like a lot of how intricate their songwriting is, how like just how different it is, how many turns and twists and turns, or just how complex. And I guess in terms of what we do now and the stuff that we write now, they're probably the first band that I really was like, oh, I understand what you mean when you say prog or progressive or, because I never really got that before, and then I'm like, oh, okay, this is super different from like, say, Metallica, Megadeth, a lot of stuff that's just kind of like, same tempo, same time signature, just fast, thrashy.
Straightforward and it sounds
straightforward,
good.
yeah. And I mean, still good. That has nothing to do with it, but it's just like, oh, wow, I didn't realize like you could do that, or I didn't realize you could make stuff sound like that. Like, that's awesome.
And so, like I said, I wanted to use this to kind of transition into talking about some of our personal idols from a musicianship standpoint. So, like I said, I think Braun is in my top 4 here. Brian's getting a beer. I'll take one. I'll take one while you're up there.
Oh, this is gonna make the game fun.
Yeah. So I would say I could easily give you 4 drummers who have most influenced my style insofar as I have one. It would be definitely Chris Adler, formerly of Lamb of God, who I read up on interestingly, and who doesn't really claim to have any influences, which I think is interesting from him, because it's not like he doesn't sound like other drummers. It kind of sounds like he's doing what they do better sometimes. So he's so professional, so tight on the kicks in particular. So one of my favorites. And I don't know, the kind of stuff, the way their stuff drives and grooves, I think is very much centered on the drum. So I strive to emulate that role almost. Sam Summer, this seems like the kind of thing you would drink.
That's what you were given.
All right, whatever, I'll drink it. And I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Not good. Not good. All right.
Not great.
That's good.
My turn.
Okay.
Went a little low.
Closer.
Slightly better, and we all chose to go low. All right, I'm over it. So yeah, we got Chris Adler, we got Braun, who his speed I think is what I admire. On his hands in particular, he's so fast there, and the fact that you'll hear him describe how he originally was only playing with guitarists, and he talks about how drummers, typically follow the bass. I don't necessarily agree with that approach anyway, but he interprets following the guitar as like when they do a run, do a fill, like that kind of thing. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
I think it's powerful when used sparingly. And then I can't forget the Rev, of course, R.I.P. Probably to this day my favorite drummer. And I think that encompasses his personality as well, and his writing style. The guy is just so unpredictable, especially as I've talked about the documentary of putting together the Avenged Sevenfold self-titled really reveals a lot of the stuff that he was instrumental in. Almost Easy, Afterlife, and of course, Little Piece of Heaven. And those songs are just so far apart from each other, and yet so amazing. So I strive for his writing ability, and as I've talked to you guys about a few times, his voice. I love what he can do in those higher registers. I shoot for that sometimes. I hope that's going to come through on some of the tracks that are going to be on the self-titled. So he's got a lot that I look to mirror. And then probably the least known name, but one of the most important to me would be Ray Hearn, the drummer for Haken, who you guys have seen live now, or
No.
Brian has.
I
You
have.
missed
I
that
haven't
show.
yet. I can't wait till.
But I mean, he's does vocals as well, which is shocking when you consider the coordination that it takes to play some of his stuff. I mean, one of the proggiest bands I can conceive of, never mind that I've ever heard. And he's just criminally underrated. Like I said, so coordinated, fast when he needs to be, extremely tight, and easy to get in touch with, which I like. He does lessons apparently, which is a nice thing about liking a
really
lesser
cool.
known band. So maybe someday that'll happen. But I reached out to him directly actually and got some of his drum books that
That's pretty
he's
sweet.
got there. So I'm going to try to emulate some of his techniques these days. And he's what really has pushed me to write slightly above my ability level. So that's me, I guess. Let's run the gambit on this. I mean, what guitar influence for you guys? Who are you looking at most?
Well, because actually, while you were going through yours, I probably will have to put it into like a guitar and a vocal camp.
Sure, yeah.
If we're talking guitar, I think the first person that I really ever truly felt like influenced by was probably David Gilmour.
Oh wow.
Pink Floyd guitarist.
Yes.
He is. If you listen to
I knew that. You knew that.
if you listen to any solo he's ever played, it's not. He doesn't shred. It's not flashy, but it is so
I'll say.
precise. Everything, every single note choice, every single bend, every single thing that he does is 100% deliberate. And I think that's really, really cool. I when my dad was kind of teaching me guitar, he went over like a lot of blues stuff. And I think it was the first time I was playing like Comfortably Numb.
Oh, yeah.
And playing that solo, the second half of it, I'm like, oh, this is just a blues scale. But he's walking down and he's walking back up and he's jumping back and forth. And I'm like, oh, this is how you like apply a scale to just playing music. And I think it was that moment that really clicked with me, where I was like, oh, you don't just learn scales to just learn them. Like you learn them and then you can apply them in different ways. But, because I never had any like real formal guitar training, that synergy didn't come until later.
Yeah.
So that was a big thing for me.
Good one.
I think it's funny because there are a lot of guitarists that I enjoy and respect and revere, but as far as have influenced me where I'm like, oh, I want to play like that, or that needs me. It's funny. It's I could go through all the people that I like, Jimmy, Stevie Ray Vaughan, like all those guys like in the early like 70s that are just ripping blues scales, just insanity. But then like Dave Mustaine actually, just I really, and I think a lot of times, especially with my role in the band and as it's kind of developed over the time that we've been doing this, is looking to guys that play guitar that also do a lot of vocal stuff.
Yeah.
So, I'm watching him and I'm like, I can't believe some of the things that he's doing, or some of like even now, or like that one night you had, it was Glenn Drover or Sean Drover. Who was it?
Well, Glenn Drover's the guitarist.
Glenn was the guitar player.
Sean's
So
the drummer.
Glenn and then Chris Broderick during like the Endgame era.
Right.
Like these guys are just, and Marty Friedman during the Rust in Peace. So all of these guys are just absolutely shredding, just ripping everything apart. But then Dave still holds his own.
Yeah.
He's really good at soloing, but then he also just like, I watched like the things he was writing and I was like, oh, that's really cool. So like you can do both. I need to find a way to be able to do both so I don't feel it. Because I was like, I want to be able to solo and I want people to be into what I can do on a guitar. And I'm not the most impressive at soloing. So I was like, oh, let's like write some cool shit, So, but you can do both. And then just the fact that he like some of the stuff that he can play while singing, it was like, Jesus Christ.
And I can tell when you write a solo you're proud of, you really value that, even if it's not your first priority. So I think that comes through a lot.
You do, yeah.
Bill Kelleher, obvious choice.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
He a lot of videos that I've watched of him playing and stuff, and just again somebody else that's very, very, very deliberate with his choices. That's like every single note, every single thing he plays, that is precise, and he nitpicks it a little and stuff. So I think that's really, really cool. Just because a lot of the stuff that, like, if you listen to I Am Ahab, that verse riff is just bananas. I'm like, who the fuck thinks of that? I'm like, you're all over the place. And I'm just
so
like,
funny. If I heard that, if one of you pitched that to me, I would hate it. But I love that song.
Yeah,
love that song.
Yeah. So
You would hate it.
so like stuff like that. I think too. Again, this goes not that he really did a lot for guitar playing, but my outward someone that I wanted to strive for if I was going to be playing guitar and doing vocals is Matt Heafy.
Yeah. He's a real professional.
But fantastic soloist, and just
absolutely.
I mean, he goes beyond just his rhythm duties. He's
Right.
He's a brilliant guitar player.
I also love his voice. He's got that low. His screams are very distinct. He's kind of got his own thing.
Not everybody can.
But
do both.
he's got such a great voice. I'll go through my vocal stuff pretty quickly. Maynard James Keenan.
Yeah.
Tool.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've never seen a person with as much vocal sustain as he has. That like just how long he can hold notes, how much power is behind those notes every single time he does it. It's nuts.
Love me some Maynard.
It's nuts.
Yep.
I should go on a Tool kick. It's been a minute.
Well, have you ever had your minute? We don't. Chris
bit.
and I are waiting.
A little bit, yeah. All right.
Chris
Fuck
and
you
I are
guys.
waiting for the pod where we do the tool of it all.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm trying to think of who else. Go get Brian's
We'll
guitar.
come back
Let me
to
think
you.
of
Let's
a couple
talk
of
about
vocal
let's talk
things.
Brian's
Okay, yeah,
guitar, so we don't have any dead air.
That's right. So the reason I play guitar, there's one video in particular.
I love these moments.
When YouTube was getting up and off the ground, there's one video of Stevie Ray Vaughan doing Jimi Hendrix's Voodoo Child.
Okay.
And he's somewhere in Texas. He's wearing the silliest, like, oversized blue suit with this crazy hat, and he's got his beat up guitar, Lenny, and he just gets up there and just puts so much stank on this fucking track. I mean, it is the steeziest,
I like me some stank.
coolest fucking performance still to me to this day.
This is so you. This is
and I remember I actually
feel.
Yes. It's always about feel, Josh. It's always about pretty much
understand-
all of my influences.
I understand what you value.
Yes.
Okay. I like numbers, multiples of 2.
Yeah, that ain't me, baby. And I remember watching this at your house, in the playroom, and I remember watching the video and being like, I'm gonna learn to play guitar, and that was the moment for me. And then beyond that, I mean, just the fact that the guy can go for hours at a time, just essentially on autopilot, just ripping like you said, these blues scales, and just the stuff he does with cadence and how hard he strikes the strings and everything. Like
Finesse.
he's just he really just brings it to a whole new level. And there's a lot of stuff that I emulate there. In a similar vein, we talked about them earlier. Led Zeppelin, Jimmy Page, a big influence. More so in the fact that I thought he was innovative, and also just pretty creative with the stuff he did. I mean, he was the first guy I saw with the the violin bow.
Sick.
Yeah.
First time I saw that was in Spinal Tap.
They ripped it from Zepp.
I'm sure they
sorry,
did. Yeah. Well, I should have mentioned Spinal Tap. Huge influence.
Yeah. So, in just their live performances, and similar to Stevie, just the ability to really just go off and solo for hours and hours, during their concerts is huge. We talked about them earlier. I got to give some cred to Kirk Hammett.
Right.
Even though he's, I respect him, and the longer I play music, the more I listen to Metallica, the more he really does blow me away in terms of his abilities.
Yeah.
But he was really integral in my earlier years.
He can't be held responsible for the fact that you beat Metallica to death. At this point.
Exactly. You're right. And can can just
Yeah. Oh, heard that before.
hum his solos pretty much note by note.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I got to put him in there. We talked about Tool a moment ago. So Adam Jones.
Oh, you do know
another
his name.
guy.
Oh, I couldn't name a single fucking. I mean, I guess I know the drummer. I keep seeing him on
Do
videos.
What's the name?
I know what he looks like. I could describe him to a police sketch artist.
Okay,
Give me his initials.
let's do that experiment real quick. All right, you give me 5 details about him if I had to make a sketch.
He has long hair.
Okay.
I would say he weighs about 180, 85 pounds, maybe.
Okay.
He's got kind of his hair is light in color.
Okay. Yeah, this is. I don't know about the weight thing, but you're correct with the other 2. Yeah, you're correct.
Yeah, I wouldn't be good with his face. His features are kind of blocky. Can't do anything for you.
You're not doing terrible.
I really don't like this tangent.
Okay, sorry. Back to your liking the guitarist whose name I've already
This is a
forgotten.
whole game I want to play when we're done with this.
Yeah.
Is like describe to a sketch artist. That's fucking hilarious.
Please continue. I'm sorry.
Danny Carey is his
Thank
name.
you.
Yes,
God
yes.
damn it.
And then, the last one, which has really been a recent influence for me to open the Floyd gates again, is David Gilmour. Yeah. He's
Okay.
I mean, Chris put it
guess he wins.
perfectly. There's no single note, no single bend, no chord out of place. I mean, everything's deliberate. Everything's got so much feel, and he really just elevates their music. I mean, you didn't list him, but I think from a vocal standpoint as well, he's excellent.
Yes, he
vocalist.
is. Yes, he is.
Far better than Roger Waters, even though Rogers got merit.
Right, that's the one I can name. Who's the other one?
David Gilmour.
David Gilmour.
Oh, he's the vocalist too.
He does a lot of vocal
He does
stuff,
a lot of
yeah.
vocals.
And
This
his-
is really. I think this is very revealing. The gaps in our relative knowledge.
You would know Roger Waters.
Why would I not? He's like the Noam Chomsky of music, right?
Yes.
Who dat?
I don't think that's a bad take.
I know that name. I could not describe him to a police sketch artist.
I'm not sure I could either, other than that he's old and extremely liberal.
He's still alive.
Is he Russian?
Yeah, pretty sure. No. Well, I mean, I don't know
got
his
a Russian-
heritage.
got
I
a
guess
Russian
it's
name.
Polish.
No,
but,
speaking of which, well,
This is not
Roger
important.
Waters so liberal that recently he blamed
See off the deep end.
the Ukraine-Russia conflict on Ukraine. So
Yeah, when you come back out the other side, you go all the
circle
way around
back
the
out.
world.
Can't
He's
be
so far to the left.
Can't be doing that.
isn't this where we came in?
I don't know what that fucking note was. It was like a Morty note. Jesus Christ. Are you done?
I got.
That's enough for me. Yeah.
I only have two people that I really want to cite. One of them, just because of the energy that he performs with, is Nuno Pereira from
Wilhelm
from
Scream.
Wilhelm
There's a
Scream.
name I
Good
know.
one.
Yeah,
Good one.
and
We were talking
it's-
over you. What band is he in?
a Wilhelm Scream.
That's right.
Out of New Bedford, Massachusetts.
Damn right.
Hometown band.
Hometown boys.
Top 5 all time for me.
Good
for sure.
choice.
Does he still work at No Problemo? Top
yes, he
5
does.
Mexican restaurants?
Is Oh yeah,
Top 1, actually.
for sure. Oh, we got a dog in the studio.
The dog is here.
Cora.
It's all good.
Oh yeah. So I mean, in terms of like somebody that, and it's funny because he, is a, he's in the band. He's just the vocalist.
Yeah.
And so I remember there was a time back in the day where we tried doing that, where we tried doing like a song or two where I would just hold the mic and do stuff. We did No Surrender at the Middle East, and
Wow.
Throwback. I remember that, yeah.
I just did it vocally, and I didn't know what to do with my hands.
Uh,
I
A
hate
song
that.
no one will ever hear.
Josh,
Can't
where do I
stand that.
put my feet?
But watching him perform, and he's just so confident, and just has first of all, just in general, those guys,
Yeah.
because they come from New
Very
Bedford
tight
and
band,
they're
yeah.
in their own right, they're huge. Touring Europe and playing all over the country here, and every time they come here, it's fucking awesome. There are a few bands I've seen have more fun on stage. They are smiling the entire time. Trevor, fucking Brian, all those guys. So Nuno especially, just so confident and so in your face with everything that he does. The other being Alex Turner from Arctic Monkeys.
Nice, good choice.
Another vocalist and songwriter who, again, kind of like what I said about Mastodon, where I'm like, oh, I didn't realize like it could be that. There's something about the way that he writes lyrics and that just flows so well, where you might think that the line is going to end, and then he throws in a couple of other words or a couple of other pieces of the melody.
Oh, I like that, yeah.
I'm gonna find it. He also, just his songwriting, like that's another thing too, is not just simply how they are as singers.
You're not about to find a song and play it into the mic.
No, I'm
are
not going
you?
to play it into the mic.
Okay,
I want to
good.
read. I want to read one line.
I gotta say, I don't think we've gotten to the place yet, but I hope someday. And we talk about the future of the band, and the title Lost Art being pretty ambiguous and not really putting ourselves in a box. I would like to do an album someday that is similar to the vein of Arctic Monkeys, where it is.
Yes, dude, they're
It
great.
is a little,
But so actually, I just found it. Let me. So I don't know why. It was funny because it takes me a long time sometimes to really, like, without looking at the lyrics, to identify what people are actually saying. So after listening to it enough times, if you look up the song, it's on Humbug, Cornerstone.
yeah. I really like that song.
I elongated my lift home. I let him go the long way around. I smelt your scent on the seatbelt, and I kept my shortcuts to myself. And the way that comes through, and the way he kind of like, it goes up and down, and I was like, holy shit. I was like, it's more, to me, a lot of the times, it's more poetry than anything else. Like a lot of that stuff where I'm like, wow, like that's kind of like a bar I can set for myself, where I want to be creative with my lyrics and, different small metaphors here or not, maybe non-conventional word choices and things like that. So I really like what he does.
Well, this has been great. I think a good place, and you talking about Wilhelm Scream, and this may be prescriptive of your answer here, but I think brings us to a good place to end here, which is I'd like to talk about everybody's favorite local band. So if it's gonna be Wilhelm Scream for you, talk just a little bit more about why that would be, or if you're gonna.
No,
throw us a
I mean, I
curveball.
guess if you're not necessarily talking about people that we play with, that it's like in our level of local, like in the scene kind of stuff.
This is a fair point. Wilhelm Scream is a tier or two above us.
Several tiers.
At least,
Yeah,
at
several
least.
tiers.
Well, it depends on how wild.
I'll pick
the
another.
tiers
I'll
are.
pick another band, but I'll go into them a little bit. Is that we were in high school, and they they have a lot of good elements of
This is a Wilhelm Scream. you're
Yeah, it's
still
a Wilhelm
talking
Scream.
about. Okay.
Of like melodic hardcore and punk rock. Like they clearly have a lot of punk rock roots. They've even opened me up to a couple of bands. It's funny, their bass player Brian wore a shirt of Descendants. Descendants is a punk band, like an old hardcore punk band. I listened to their first album, and if you listen to the bass lines on that album, I'm like, oh fuck, that's why he likes them.
Clear, yeah.
He's got a fucking Iron Maiden tattoo. Another good Steve Harris.
Oh yeah,
Right? That's his name, Steve Harris.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
another awesome bass player. So,
They're an
you know,
influence whenever.
so I got into these guys. They shred. Their solos are amazing. Their vocals are amazing. They do a lot of cool harmony stuff. And I think
Which we strive to do.
right. But I think just at its very bare bones, it's just really cool to see a band that you live 15 minutes from their hometown, and that band is out there doing it, making it, touring, and it's kind of cool. Like
Give
I'll
us
never
your secrets.
well, but I'll never forget. If you guys remember up the street from No Problemo, there used to be that vintage shop.
Yeah.
That had old furniture and New Yorker magazines. and
Playboys.
Excuse me.
Nice.
They had vinyls. I bought Wilhelm Scream's self-titled EP. I walked down to No Problemo that day. I asked him to sign it, and then I got some food and hung out.
It's cool.
And I was like, he was working the register, and I said, hey, I know you're working and stuff, but like, can you sign this for me? And he did, and I still have it. And I have all their fucking records. I love them, dude. They're the nicest people you'll ever meet. They're fucking awesome musicians. So that's...
And all of this is prefaced to say you're about to pick another band as your favorite local.
Well, my favorite local band.
Were you trying to choose a tier a little closer to us?
Yeah. I think it's funny because
that's
it's
good
hard.
enough. You've talked long
All
enough.
right.
I'll take
That's
over.
fair. That's fair. I tend to do that.
Yeah.
I need to be called out.
Mine is gotta be, and I'm super stoked that we're playing with them on the 30th.
I was hoping you were going to say this.
Professor Caffeine and the Insecurities. Yeah.
Does that mean Josh has to pick a different one?
Oh, I'm ready to pick a different one.
Oh,
Yep.
good. Okay, cool.
Because I got two that are tied, and that's one of them.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I know what your other one is. Yeah,
so-
that's right.
So I mean, these guys just they really check off all the boxes. I mean, catchy choruses, like hooks that you can really catch on to and sing along with. Really, after like one or two listens, but beyond that, I mean, the guitar work is
Their
interesting.
musicianship is just so apparent.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
in
Absolutely.
everything they write.
There's no shred of doubt that these guys are masters of their craft, and they really kick some ass. I've only gone through the comic book and video game EPs, but still, I mean, they're just so worth listen after listen.
Well, that's not
and,
entirely true. You've checked out their two newest
That's true,
singles,
that's
and
true,
we've
yeah.
talked a lot about those actually.
Did you listen to Wolfang?
Wolfang
I love it.
especially.
Yeah.
We won't shut up about Wolfang
Yeah,
Fist.
yeah.
Yeah, that song is fucking
Shut up about Wolfang.
Yeah. No, it's I mean, they really hit it out of the park every time, and I really hope they kind of, when they drop this new record, they kind of elevate to the next level because they so deserve it. And it's been kind of a small bucket list item for me to play with them.
Yeah.
And we'll be doing that on October 30th.
Dude, them to like know who the fuck we are is huge to me because
See, I love that.
Just
feeling.
them.
I love them as
That's
much as I
the
love like any
So
huge band.
But it's like that's the same feeling. That's the same feeling of getting him to sign that
Exactly.
record. Or the time that
Of
we
course, I gotta get some of their records
I've
and get
seen
them to sign
them,
them.
but like Wilhelm Scream saw them 3 different times at the Met in Pawtucket, and then we played there. That was
Right,
huge.
yeah, that was cool.
That was really
Yeah.
cool. So
All right, JB, what's yours?
Well, yeah, and of course you did me a favor in choosing Prof Calf there because that would be it'd be a Sophie's choice for me
I think
between
a good
them
guess, yeah.
and the Morgana phase,
I knew
who
it.
I am not shutting up about at any point. I mean, in private conversations, I've even talked about them on the podcast briefly before. I everything they do, I love. They've put out 2 albums. Like, they came right out of the gate with 2 full albums, full concept albums, and they're
Individually or together, they're the same concept?
No, I think
It's like
I
a
think
part
they
one
came
and-
out. Yeah,
part 1, part 2.
it's not billed that way. I think they came out
Okay.
some years apart or something
Oh,
like
gotcha.
that. But
Yeah.
but the quality is insane. It's the same type of thing. You can tell the quality of their musicianship by the way they write, and just very much by accident, I have sort of become friends with Dan, the guitarist from Organophase. So that's
Dan? From
What's
both
that?
bands?
Dan from both bands. That's the guy. Yeah. So, as you said, with Prof Calf, excited to be playing with them on October 30th. That's probably in the past by the time we're releasing this podcast, but we're playing with, similarly, Morganophase on November 18th for our EP release
Right,
show.
that's gonna be fun.
I'm
So-
absolutely thrilled about that. It's the first time we've
Play
played
with
with
them. Yeah, that'll be sweet.
Yeah, and just I'm so jealous and envious of the way that they can write. They make it seem so effortless. We've actually there's been parts where I'm actively seeking to write something kind of like that, and I think that is really telling of
great
your admiration for a
Mm-hmm.
band, local or not. So there might be times where you guys are actively seeking to write something not unlike Wilhelm Scream or like Prof Calf. So
Those are the best, though. I mean, if it's
Yeah.
like not only just a band that you enjoy listening to, but a band that makes you want to be better at music.
yes,
I am not
absolutely.
good enough to write shit like Prof Calf. I'll just say that right now.
No,
but-
and I don't claim to be that for Prof Calf or Morganophase.
Yeah.
But
I guess I have to throw my hat in that, too.
I think any elements
You think you're better than Wilhelm?
any elements that we allow to seep into our process from these local favorites those elements are gonna be positive. So
Yeah.
I'm always looking for things that we can add to our sound, and it goes back to what you were alluding to earlier about what we think about this project with kind of the ambiguous name. Like we were talking about, there's bands and people in the local scene that we talk to and watch them talk on social media, and oftentimes there's these calls that go out for her, looking to start a black metal project or like an EDM type of thing. And I'm just so grateful that we have, first of all, a group of 4 guys that are as tight as we are. And also as musically adventurous, that we feel like anytime we get a hankering to do something different like that, we can just go to this group of people and say, I'd like this type of thing to happen under the Lost Art name, and I don't think it's really a problem for anybody.
I am tight and adventurous, Daddy.
I think that's a great place to leave it.
I was gonna say. Yeah,
So,
that'll do.
thanks again so much for tuning into to Randy Johnson's Castball. Again, not sure when this is going to come out, but watch our social medias, Instagram and Facebook, for upcoming shows. Again, if you're in the Providence, New Bedford, Boston areas, those things might be coming to you soon. So if you're interested in getting a sense of how you can apply this knowledge about our influences and stuff, please check out not only From the Ether, our release coming out on November 18th, but also our first EP, From Sand to Sea. So we hope you enjoy getting a better idea of who we are and where we came from. So thanks so much again for listening.
I am tight and adventurous, Daddy.